Well, we have ourselves a new horror movie and a YouTuber getting a chance to make a feature film. We are talking about Shelby Oaks from Neon, hitting theaters this weekend, directed and written by YouTube's own Godfather of movie review channels, Chris Stuckmann. And I think there's a lot of things to talk about this movie. Let's just get into it. Yes, Shelby Oaks was at first a kick-started, fan-funded movie from Chris Stuckmann, one of YouTube's most well-known reviewers, very honest, always gives a good thought on what they believe, but also just in general being very fair to filmmakers and understanding the challenge that comes with it, is on the big screen with this movie that got picked up by Neon and injected with some more money. Shelby Oaks takes us into a horror mystery movie trying to figure out what happened to Riley from the perspective of her sister Mia. And this movie is kind of broken up for me into three parts that are all kind of their own acts in a movie per se. Your introduction to who Riley was and what led up to her abduction was shown, I thought, through really creative ways through Stuckmann. Things that you might have seen in similar type of movies, but I thought it worked pretty well. I think it set a good beginning tone to the film, and part of me wishes that this beginning tone got trimmed out more and kept more into a documentary feeling type vibe that they were going for to start this movie out before even the credits roll. I think you get a lot of character world building for Riley and all of the friends that also went missing with her. You get a lot of questions that may be answered later in the movie or points that you may revisit later in the movie. And just sets an overall good just world building tone between Mia, the sister, Riley, her friends, and the world around them during and after and before Riley went missing and her friends went missing, I believe 9 years before the start of this movie. Part of me thinks that some of this, like I said, could have been trimmed up. I think there's a few scenes you can take off the cutting floor that were just adding extra dialogue and commentary where you didn't need, which led into a very, very thrilling second act that featured, I think, the outstanding prison scene with a certain character that I think showed when Stuckmann was at his best. Lots of tension, lots of building up atmosphere, a lot of just great acting coming out of our main actress, Camille Sullivan, who played Mia, who pretty much was the primary actress through this whole entire movie. And Mia's journey in figuring out where Mia's going throughout, I think, for the most part, was well realized by, director-writer Stuckmann and Sullivan, the actress at hand. You felt the emotion she had when things weren't going right, when things weren't going well, when things were going well. Sullivan just did a great job leading this movie and just creating a tone to, I think, match the audience well and to give you some believability well. I think Stuckmann, at times, built a very good world at creating atmospheric scares, at giving us really ponderous questions, and putting us in scenarios where you don't know what's going to happen, you just know something is going to happen, and making you kind of figure out what it is before it jump scares to you. Stuckmann did a very good job at that, especially throughout the second act. My issues with this movie, in some ways, comes with its very rushed third act. No spoilers going to go into it, but when you see the movie, you'll understand what I mean. It feels very much like the movie is hinting and I think it is hinting a full plot that doesn't get flushed out because it feels like it's rushing to the end. The movie is just over an hour and 40 minutes, and I know Stuckmann, like any critic out there, is thinking probably in their head, let's keep this movie under 2 hours. It's a simple horror movie. We don't want to wait too long for the audience. And that's where I think you need to cut out some of the first act of the movie with some of the conversations, like one with like an old prison warden. I don't necessarily think that was needed. That sequence was needed, and it could have been given to allow the understanding and really flesh out what the third act was all about and what was going on in Shelby Oaks with Mia and the discoveries that she made along the way looking for her sister, Riley. And yeah, the third act had the issues, and I think Stuckmann was probably limited by budget. This is a very cheap movie. Like I said, it was crowd-funded to begin with, and Neon put some extra money in there. And another one of my criticisms for Stuckmann was using of CGI that looked very much like 90s CGI. I appreciate the vision and wanted to be certain things, but I couldn't help but think, man, you could have almost went practical with at least one of the CGI beings, that take place in the movie, and I think it would have looked better and more appealing as an audience member. Lessons can be learned for future movies and be less dependent on CGI for ideas. But overall, Shelby Oaks, I do think delivers a fun time in the theaters. I think majority of this movie just works very, very well. Again, Carrie Sullivan does a tremendous job in the lead role. Stuckmann delivers a lot of different scenes that give high tension, that puts you on the edge of your seat, and is able to play well with the score, with the atmosphere, with the sounds. It's really solid directing, and I hope Stuckmann's able to land more projects, whether in horror or other places after this, because I think he has a clear vision and a clear scope for movies. And the movie, for the most part, outside of the CGI, was pretty beautifully shot. You had some things that were maintained vintage video type stuff, but all the stuff in present day, beautifully shot, and it made the CGI look a little bit worse because everything else looked so pristine and real, and those practical scare sets, those practical scenes of high intensity just worked so well. So a lot of commendation for Stuckmann and his crew for getting that right. Should you go and see Shelby Oaks for Halloween? I've seen a lot of horror movies this year. A lot of them have not been very good. Some of them have been good. You have your Weapons out there. You have Bring Her Back. You also have Sinners, if you call it a horror movie. I don't call Sinners as much a horror movie. But I would put Shelby Oaks in a similar spot to like that. It's getting a platinum from me. I really did enjoy most of the first act and almost all of the second act storytelling wise. I think the third act does get you to understand what the story is about, and again, if it had more time to flesh itself out, this could have been a really strong diamond rating for me, as somebody who isn't the biggest horror movie enjoyer. But comparing it to movies like the last Conjuring movie, even the new Black Phone movie, this just feels like a more better realized just world and movie and scares that I think with proper screenwriting and fine-tuning and storyboarding before you start this, I think you could have crafted a really solid all-around movie. But what I think I will say is Chris Stuckmann put his money and his time and his ambition where his mouth is. A lot of us doing these reviews on YouTube would love to get a chance to do what Chris Stuckmann did, and kind of shows you how difficult the art of filmmaking is. So to that, I say thank you for giving us this opportunity. I wish you more luck, Chris, and I hope people go check out this movie so you can get more roles and more funding for future movies, because it's fun to see people come up through a community and open doors in ways that hasn't happened before. Tell me your thoughts on Shelby Oaks in the comments down below, and like and subscribe for more movie reviews here on my channel.